Transpaco is controlled by the Albenham family and is active across the packaging spectrum. It has a market cap of 553 million rand and a price to earnings ratio of 7 and a dividend yield of 4.4%. So another small one within the sector. Your thoughts on
Well,
Transpaco?
I was moaning about Vestact only turning over on average, like 16,000 rands worth of shares a day. This one, 0. So in other words, it just basically doesn't trade. So it hasn't traded for a while. But that's again because it's fairly tightly held. The Abelheim family that you mentioned that kind of listed it. And we see quite a lot of industrial companies like this. So you've got a company that's been around for a while. Then somebody says to him, hey, why don't you list on the stock market? Sometime there's a boom going on. So then naturally that is what they do. But at no point are they really significant sellers of the shares. So you end up with companies like these that don't really have a lot of external institutional shareholders in order to make market liquidity. So anybody ever talks about them is when they're having their results, and even then they don't really get much attention. So again, in this case, quite choppy earnings over time. Does seem to be kind of picking up, but it's hard to know how sustainable that is. Over to you.
Transpaco?
So Transpaco is the smallest in the packaging space at about a 500 million market cap. I actually quite like this company. I think in its recent history it's performed quite nicely. In their flexible category, if you compare that to Vestact, they've actually done well. So once again, they have somehow managed their customer base better than their competitor. It might be due to the fact of what I said earlier, that in this space you either have to be big or you have to be specialized. And Transpaco in their flexibles side is one of the largest, or maybe the largest provider of retail bags. Plastic bags, pick and pay bags, etc. So they've done well in that space. They've got a few good businesses in there. Their returns on equity are decent. I think one of the reasons why it doesn't really go anywhere or it moves in a step change is pretty much like Paul said, there's no liquidity in the stock.
So no liquidity in the stock, Paul, but I know they closed a whole lot of underperforming operations on that front.
There is that, but I also want to ask you, what is this Desaki acquisition that they did?
So that acquisition they did last year, that has helped their earnings this year. Their top line was up over 20%, helped by that acquisition. That is basically cardboard tubing. Tubes like I'd imagine for toilet paper and rolls, the cardboard cylinders that you find in those rolls. And so far it seems to be performing nicely. And what I like about the business is, once again, they're diversifying away from their core plastic side into the more paper side now. And it shows that management are thinking, they're strategizing, let's make acquisitions, let's move into this side of packaging. They're doing things, they're on the go.
So company doing things. Are we getting to a hot there for Transpaco?
I think it's a nice little company, I'd say hot.
Hot, Paul, yourself?
Look,
Hot
the
hot?
other party that's a big shareholder apart from the Abelheims is an empowerment group called Amalgam, which owns 36% of it. So I suppose that's work that's in hand. But I'm afraid, again, too small in a difficult industry, so I'm going to go with not hot.
But Daniel's just thrown some positives on Transpaco, so still not. Okay, so not hot for Paul and Transpaco, and
Paul's
hot
very negative
for, he's
today.
extremely negative.